Greetings. Welcome to Lit with Lloyd. I am your host, Lloyd Russell. I want to give a shout out to KCAT for sponsoring our show. And my guest today is going to be a real treat for all of us. Melissa Maglio is our very first librarian. And there are so many questions I have to find out what happens behind the scenes in a library that I doubt I'll get them all in today, but we'll give it a go. Welcome, Melissa. Thank you for being here.
Sure. Thanks for inviting me in.
So I want to start with a little bit of background, and then I want to get into some meat. What prompted you to become a librarian?
To be honest, I needed a job. So when I moved to the Silicon Valley, I needed a job. So I was 20 and I went into a library just to see what I could find. And they had a job board and they had openings. So I applied and I became a page, and that was it. I decided I loved it and I just started working my way up the chain. So.
And what cities or towns have you worked for in the libraries?
So I started for San Jose, and then when I actually became a librarian, got my master's degree, my first librarian job was actually with the town of Los Gatos. So I really do owe them a lot for helping me really start my actual professional career. So as things worked out, though, I lived in San Jose, so I moved back to San Jose, and now I'm serving the community that I'm living in now.
And how many years have you been a librarian?
Oh gosh, my total library career is about 23 years, but I became a professional librarian with Los Gatos in 2010, and so that's 13 years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell our listeners and viewers that when you ran the book club in Los Gatos, and I was a member of it, I could not wait each month for the next meeting because it was so much fun. You did a great job of giving us the right questions to ask, and I really missed you when you left.
Oh.
And then shortly thereafter, I left.
You don't go anymore?
No, I haven't gone in years, but it's not a reflection on who replaced you. It's just that it wasn't you.
It's not the same. Yeah,
No.
I get that.
So much fun. Are there book clubs like that in San Jose?
Oh, I'm sure. I know our library system, we have multiple book clubs happening different days of the week, different times. I still host a book club because I love it. I love it. But the thing is, mine's very specific in terms of what we focus on. So I'm doing a self-improvement, self-help focused book club for the last 7 years.
Wow.
And the books vary. Lately, we've actually incorporated some of those like TED Talks into it.
Yeah.
For those months that we just can't seem to get through a book, we go that route. So.
Okay. We all know libraries, but we know front of the house. Tell us how a library works. I mean, you recently got promoted to senior librarian.
Right.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
And I think you said that you are a manager for 2 of the branches.
Right.
What do you do? How do you oversee it? What are the different aspects and elements of running a library?
Oh, yeah. Wow. Well, it really depends on where you're at. Like the town of Los Gatos is very different from how a big city like San Jose with 25 branches works, right? So for me, most of my activity has to do with supporting the librarians doing their jobs.
Okay.
And then being that intermediary between administration, trying to figure out what the initiatives are that we're trying to follow, and then bringing those down to the librarians to get the work done. So I'm kind of in the middle now, but I still get to be a librarian, right? So Last week, I actually went out to do summer outreach at one of the grade schools. Because one of the things that we do with funding from the state of California is we do what's called summer lunch. So this year, it has become us going out to the grade schools and, middle school, high schools that do summer lunch, which they're literally giving students lunch. The students who end up starving during the summer because they're dependent on lunch during school.
Oh, wow.
Right? So we this year go out to the schools and we pass out, I don't know if you know what they're called, STEAM kits. So they are like bags full of science crafts for them to do at home to learn a little bit about science and put together like different type of craft objects. And we also hand out a whole bunch of free books.
Oh, wow.
So we've been doing summer lunch outreach this year. Before the pandemic, we were actually serving lunch every day, Monday through Friday, in the library.
Wow. To
support those students that needed the food.
Yeah.
So a little switch this year from doing that. But yeah, I still get to be a librarian. I still host a book club, like I was telling you. And then I fill in when I have, staff shortages. Someone needs vacation, someone gets sick. So I'm still doing story times. Those are definitely the pillar of what libraries do. We really service to those 0 to 5 age groups and the parents and the families. That's always, I feel like, what libraries, at least public libraries, will be focusing on. So,
and that's year round, I take it.
And that is year round.
Wow.
Absolutely, yes. So, and that's just some of what is happening at the libraries.
Tell us more.
Much more. You want to know more? Okay.
We definitely want to know what kind of activities. Before you give me that, can you do a quick org chart for the San Jose Library? I mean, is there a head librarian and then just different levels below?
Yeah, exactly right. So it's funny because when you look at Los Gatos, right, the whole staff, including the library director, is had to be like 15, 20 people for your town library. And they're doing amazing things over there with that amount of staff, right? So they just have a director and then their manager and then the librarians. So San Jose is very similar, except larger scale. So we have a library director, and under her we have 2 assistant directors. And under them we have more administration that oversees like my position. So I have a boss. So I have a boss, and a boss. So it's kind of, it's still hierarchies. There's just more levels.
Yeah.
Right. So it's very similar to Los Gatos, only we just have more levels.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So you do a lot of different programs for the 0 to 5. What do you do for the middle school and the high school and the adults and the seniors?
Yeah, exactly right. So public libraries, we tried to serve everybody, all ages. And it can be difficult if you're small. So you really have to figure out where the most impact is going to be. For my 2 branches, we kind of look at who our communities are, and we go from there. So for one of them, we don't get a lot of that middle grade. We get a lot of teenagers because where we're located is on the campus of Independence High School.
Ah, okay.
Right. So we're serving like 200 plus teenagers every day after school. Very similar to Los Gatos Library, right? After school, I remember when I worked there, Los Gatos High School got out and they all came over to the library to hang out. Very similar to where I'm at now. So some of the programs that we host, we do a lot of volunteer opportunities because the teenagers, a lot of them, that's what they're in need of is ways to volunteer to enhance their their scholarships, their college applications. I'm finding, because that library is on the east side of San Jose, I'm finding that a lot of the schools aren't requiring community service anymore. So a lot of my teens that come in that want service hours, they're actually from some of the charter schools. There's some from some of the private schools, because they're still asking teenagers to do, community service. So we try to host opportunities for that. We have a program called Teens Reach. It's a monthly meeting where teens come in, and we put them in leadership roles. They'll host their own meetings. They will come up with program ideas. They then host the programs for our communities. So, for example, right now a big thing is coding. So we have a lot of high schoolers who want to come in and teach grade schoolers, the basics of coding and how to make video games and how to make apps, and so stuff like that.
Wow.
And that's like a big thing right now. I was actually just talking to one of my librarians who's going to be hosting a 5-day in-person MIT app program that a volunteer is going to be doing. So things like that, a lot of coding going on. Trying to think, a lot of crafting programs. What we're finding too is as we do outreach and we talk to our communities, a lot of them are wanting us to provide events to bring the community together. They want spaces that are safe, that they can get to know their neighborhoods. So we're doing a lot of what we call cultural enrichment programs. So a lot of it is craft programs. At my other library at Seven Trees, my librarian is putting together a stories and s'mores program. And so she is inviting the grade schoolers and the families to come in. They're going to make s'mores. They're going to sit around and they're going to tell scary stories, kind of like a summer campy kind of theme like that. And just provide this atmosphere for people to just enjoy being in the library, being with each other, stuff like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really, really cool.
Right.
Does the administration, are people responsible for coming up with these programs? I mean, how do those programs even get developed?
Right. So we do have guidelines, especially we are really focused on education initiatives. We want to be intentional about the programs that we offer, making sure that they're providing value in terms of teaching people life skills, things like that. So we follow those kind of guidelines, and from there we kind of see like what creative ideas can we come up with to meet those initiatives. So most of it is just librarians just coming up with like, hey, this would be a great idea. And it also helps as I'm learning, as I'm supervising, learning to be a supervisor, is that if you can get way more engagement from your staff if it's something they're really passionate about.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't have to do anything other than advise. They're off and running. And so
great.
I've been blessed because I have some staff that are just phenomenal in terms of coming up with these amazing ideas. This morning, at my other library, we serve every week a large population of people with developmental disabilities, special needs. We have a group that comes in every Tuesday. It's like 30 or 40 of them. And so we have this program called the Insiders Program. And so my librarian she keeps coming up with these amazing programs for them.
Wow.
This morning she had them come in and she taught them a little bit about environmentalism. She did a quick little like book read discussion on a lady who went to San Diego and learned how to plant all these native plants in order to really populate the area that was really desolate with beautiful trees that weren't invasive. And so she talked to this insiders group about this, shared the story, and then she had this like craft, super simple, basically, you can take a pen. You've probably seen these at stores where they don't want you to walk off with their pen, so they like tape something to the end of the pen to make it obvious that you're holding their pen. So she had them take pens and wrap flowers on them, and she's like, not everyone likes flowers. So then she brought in like fake leaves or something to make it look like some of the discussion she was talking about from the botanist who and she just comes up with these great ideas, and it's just like,
wow.
I don't know, some librarians are just naturally creative.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
All right, I got more for you. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with Melissa Maglio.
Thank you to the City of Montecirino for their continued support of KCAT Public Media. The City of Montecirino has enabled KCAT to inspire, educate, entertain, and inform our community through the magic of television and digital media for over 38 years. Thank you.
And welcome back to with Lloyd. Let's get back into the library descriptions and back of the house and all that stuff with Melissa Maglio. Okay, you've talked about some programs for different age kids. Do you have programs for adults and seniors as well?
We do, yeah, absolutely. A lot of what our focus is right now is helping adults who are in need of support in like digital literacy, adults who need support in reading even. We have an entire department focused on helping adult learners learn to read, which you can probably imagine can be a very embarrassing, difficult thing to take to a stranger and say, hey, I can't read, and I'm like 45 years old, you know? So we take very seriously a lot of the services that we have for our adults. And like I said, I host book clubs, so we have multiple book clubs. Adults seem to like that. I'd say one of our largest adult program avenues right now is Silicon Valley Reads. Los Gatos participates. You know about it. Yep. So for those who don't, it's a Silicon Valley wide month. It's like February or April to like the end of May or something, and all of these libraries in Silicon Valley come together and they all pick a theme and they all read the same book, and they host programs around the theme and around the book. And when I started libraries in 2000, that program had kind of just started out, and it's been interesting to see the migration of that program, because really it was geared to adult readers, adults attending programs, and at the time it was like they picked one book only, right? I remember they picked like Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451 one year, or they picked what was that book? It was The Circuit. What was about an immigrant, a young immigrant boy who shared his story about going through the school systems. Classic book. Jimenez, I think, is the author.
Okay.
But that was back in like 2000. Anyways, but they would pick one book only. So now, 2023, it's like we have like 3 different books. We now have a whole thing for children.
Yep.
And it's bloomed and grown into this really amazing, literature program, mostly for adults, but they've incorporated kids. So there's just a lot of different things going on for adults right now in the libraries.
And when Silicon Valley Reads is going, don't the authors actually also come to the different libraries and give talks and things?
Exactly right. So one of the things was the books they picked, they were trying to make sure it came from local authors. at that time, especially. So like the circuit was actually like a professor here at like Santa Clara University or something like that. So they were trying to pick books by authors, well-known authors from the area. And so today they try to get the authors to come and do, book discussions and such.
Yeah. I want to get back to the reading thing, because that just is so critical.
Yeah.
How do you guys actually help people learn to read? What kind of programs do you have?
Exactly. So I don't have a big hand in that. I just know about the program in case we run across people in our communities that we think could benefit. Our program is called PAR, which is called Partners in Reading. And it is based on the use of volunteers. So we have a paid staff that coordinates the program. They host trainings for these volunteers to teach people how to read. And so from my understanding is they will pair up the volunteer with adults who have come to the library saying, hey, I need some help learning. And so they will pair those people up together, and they will work through whatever curriculum they have set to really support the learning of this adult, who's trying to learn to read.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a great program.
Have audiobooks helped with that? Because obviously you do have audiobooks in every branch, correct?
We sure do.
I mean, we know a lot of people that listen to audiobooks that can read, but they can be doing other things while they're listening to an audiobook. A lot of people that are doing some walking or, or even work from home that doesn't require a lot of thought. It seems like people that can't read could listen to audiobooks, and then that is reading. And anybody that tells me it's not reading is going to have to answer to me, because listening to an audiobook is the same as reading a book, whether it's a digital or a paper. So have you seen like a big upswing in audiobook rentals?
I'm seeing less, but in respect to adult learners, I don't know. But I'm seeing less in terms of people checking out the physical audiobook, because digital has now taken over, the ease of which you can access something. So I am seeing less checkouts of our audiobooks, but I'm going to guess that the downloading of our audiobooks is probably pretty high.
Okay.
Yeah. In terms of adults learning to read, well, I don't know because I'm not part of that program, but I can imagine that probably comes into play as they're trying to learn, right? So, that's actually an interesting question.
I love audiobooks. My wife and I used to listen to a lot of audiobooks before COVID, because we were meeting friends an hour away, and we listened to some fabulous books. We don't really have much of an opportunity to do it now, but we would if we took up a lot of driving again.
Yeah.
I think it's just such a fantastic thing. And of course, the e-books are also great. I'll take paper anytime, but I know a lot of people don't even bother with paper books anymore. Yeah. Which leads me to my next question. I'm trying to word it. Do you have more paper books, less print books than you've had in the past? Is it just the same? And how do you decide what titles to bring into the library? How does all that work? I know that's a big question with a lot of possible explanations.
Oh, sure. So just like programs, it really depends on your library, right? So how Los Gatos works, being a single library versus San Jose, is very different. So I can tell you from working in Los Gatos, I was the selector purchaser, worked with the vendors for the entire adult collections.
Wow.
Mostly the nonfiction collection, now that I think about it, because that would be quite a bit. But at that time, we're talking at least 7-8 years ago, I was still using paper catalogs and going through and looking at book reviews, checking off what looked good, what doesn't. And part of it is knowing your community, knowing what they're going to want. Obviously, we definitely get all the bestsellers in all of the formats. That's not going to change. But every year, the budget changes too, right? So you have to make these decisions about how much money to allocate.
Oh, wow.
So it's constantly changing. And you're dealing with vendors who are also struggling. They got to figure out how to make money. So the decisions vary depending on what kind of format you buy, how much you buy, what is being used and what's not being used. So you have to really keep an eye on circulation statistics, things like that, so that you know where the best place to put the money into the collections is, right?
Wow.
And then since I was doing nonfiction, you also have those collections you have to keep an eye on, like the medical books, right? You have to keep that stuff up to date. Those are not cheap books. So that's when you start turning more towards the digital realm, because it's a lot cheaper and easier to stay up to date when it's a digital format. So
are there books that at some point you get rid of? I mean, I guess you still have records of who's taking what book out, even though they're doing it themselves. Does somebody look at the numbers and say these books haven't been checked out in 5 years and we're going to get rid of them?
Exactly right.
Wow.
Yep. I would love to say that we have a secret basement downstairs, and when we run out of room, we just shove it down there, and it's, you can request it in the catalog, and we run down and we get it for you. But that would be lovely, but it doesn't work like that. No. So we do start relying on digital copies as we run out of room. And circulation statistics play a huge role in some of the decisions that we make, right? So that, and just the overall health of the collection. Is it tore up? Is it, is it missing? Sometimes things go missing. There's so much we don't know. So we're constantly running, lists every month to see if something is actually still there because it hasn't circulated in a year or two. Is it even on the shelf anymore? That kind of thing. So there's a lot that goes into making those decisions on your collections.
I assume that every library, you can check out books for a certain amount of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And if books are late, do you guys charge a fee?
Yes. However, one of the things we're really adamant about is making sure people have access. So we don't want library fines to be a barrier.
Yeah.
If we can help it.
Yeah.
But we also know that people need, rules to stay honest, keep honest people honest.
And not to take advantage.
Right. So one of the things that we have is we call it we have book replacement programs. We have fine reduction programs. So we have all these different avenues that we can use to support patrons who may have accidentally forgot they even had a book and they return it. They can volunteer away their fines. They can buy us a new book to replace the one they have misplaced. But the one thing that has happened in the last couple of years is we've done away with fines on children's items. Because we feel like those are the users, the parents especially. Our biggest circulating collections are our picture books and our books for the younger readers. And if you're a parent, you probably remember when you were a parent how hard it is to keep track of things, right? When you have a toddler, when you have multiple kids. And so doing away with some of the fines for that, I see it in the parents' faces when they come and go, I got all these fines. I got all these late books, and we check them in and we're like, your fines are 0. And they're like, what? They're so relieved. And it's like those kind of decisions that we can make to support the use of the libraries. It's great. So we tried this year to go fines free for the whole system, but it just didn't work out. But it's always something in the back of our minds.
Do you have somebody that got a giant fine and refuse to pay?
Oh, all the time, sure. Yeah, why not?
You don't do anything legally to make them pay, do you?
No, I mean, every system has their process to work with those people who may be struggling a little more than others, so we have ways to really work with them. We get them every now and then, everybody has something.
But I would imagine, though, if you have somebody that's taken out a popular book, one of the latest books, and they haven't returned it, do you order another one? What do you do in a situation like that?
We watch the wait list grow. Eventually, what happens, I believe, is our selectors take a look at how many copies we have on hand, and they'll try to replenish if it makes sense in the budget and it makes sense in the wait list and the desire of the community to want the item. They'll make that decision.
Okay.
I can tell you the biggest thing right now, we loan out Chromebooks, we loan out Wi-Fi hotspot devices, and those items are super popular. The wait list, like for the Wi-Fi hotspots, are enormous.
Oh, wow.
And so the other downside to that is if they lose one of those items, then we come up with creative ways to work with them, mostly. So it's great that we can offer all these services and these resources, but you also have to consider how to make sure things are coming back to us so other people can use them.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I've always enjoyed about the Los Gatos Library is that if there is an audio book that they didn't have, they would let us get it. They would buy it and have it sent to us, and then we would just return it for them to put on the shelves. Do you have anything like that?
Isn't that great? That is the thing probably I miss the most about going from a small town library to a very large one. Things don't work quite like that. It's so nice. I remember starting for Los Gatos coming from San Jose, and at that time my manager, a patron asked for a book. We didn't have one. He ran down to the bookstore on Main Street, bought the book, came back. He did the processing in like 10 minutes and handed the book to the patron to check out.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, what?
That's nuts.
Right? But small town libraries, they're amazing. The flexibility, the things they can do.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, any big organization is going to have trouble doing what the little guys can do.
Exactly right.
I've been inside the Martin Luther King Library, right? That's part of the San Jose
That's
Library?
our main branch, yep.
Okay. Mm-hmm. It's enormous.
Yeah.
Are there any other branches that even closely approximate, that size?
Nope, that's the mothership. It was interesting because that was actually, so I started in 2002. It was a joint project with the university, right? So they were like married in many, many ways, like staff and collections and everything. They were a joint venture in offering library service to university students and to the public. Over the years, they've kind of found their own paths, but they're still sharing that building. And so that's one of the reasons it's so large, is because you're hosting like two different types of collections, right? University collections can look very different from a public library collection, right? So, and the needs of students can be very different from the needs of the public. So you have to have enough space, and that building is beautiful.
It sure
and it
is.
really houses a lot of stuff.
Well, I was wrong when I introduced you and said that, that there were a lot of things that were going to be interesting, because it's way more than I even thought. I have so many other questions that I want to ask you that we don't have time for. Mm-hmm. That was fascinating. Good. So I really appreciate you being here. And I think that our viewers and listeners are going to really enjoy all the things you've told us.
Yeah, I hope they go online to their library websites and check out all the cool things that there's going on there, events, resources. It's amazing what's going on in your libraries.
Great. Okay. Well, you all heard it from Melissa, so make sure that you do that and get a better sense of what the local libraries do. Okay, that closes the book on today's podcast. I want to thank KCAT again for hosting our show. I want to thank Melissa for a fascinating interview. And if you want to see other podcasts, you can go on lloyd.show/YouTube and see some of the previous interviews. So that'll do it for us, and we'll see you next time.
You just heard Lit with Lloyd here on KCAT Radio. Explore all our KCAT original programming at kcat.org/radio.